All right, here we go, everybody, and welcome to the premiere episode of the Need a Lift podcast. The Need a Lift podcast with me, your happy host, Clyde. Always pleasure to be here with you today, everybody. And it is a beautiful, gray, foggy morning here in San Francisco, California, and I'm coming at you live from my bay window. I've made a little fort. Pardon me. Sorry. That's what I get for drinking soda water. I made a little fort in my bay window, and this is the den from where wonderful creations come into the world. And it's one such creation being this new podcast of mine. That's right, this is the debut episode of the Need a Lift podcast. And if you're listening to this, presumably, you're looking for a lift. So let me lay that flat out on the table. This podcast will be nothing but me giving you a little booster, a little lift. Me giving you a kick in the pants, saying, hey, man, or lady, hey, bud, hey, person, I believe in you. I believe that you can do that goddamn thing that only you can do because you are the one who is stricken with the inspiration to bring this thing into the world. Now, that's not to say I'm going to sit up here in my ivory tower and pontificate and give you advice, because I have no advice to give. I really don't. I'm no more knowledgeable about your vision. I'm no more knowledgeable about your vision than anybody else. But all I can say is that I'm excited for your vision. I'm excited for your creation. And you are the only one who can bring it into the world. And so it is your duty to all of us to bring it into the world. Never forget that, whatever you do. Okay. Carrying on. I would like to go over the 5 principles, that is to say the 5 laws of success as laid out by the late, great Walter Russell. And if you don't know who Walter Russell is, type it into Google. Might just blow your mind. Anyway, I came across this pamphlet a few years ago. More than a few years ago. I guess 6 or 7 years ago now. And the pamphlet was called The Man Who Tapped the Secrets of the Universe. And Walter Russell was routed in a movement called the New Thought movement, and there is really something to it. So, in a nutshell, be very careful, be very selective about what thoughts you leave hanging around in your brain. Your brain is indeed a garden. Cultivate it accordingly. Pluck the weeds out and let the flowers bloom. That's all there is to it. That's very poetic, I know, but I'm sure you, savvy listener, can figure it out. Okay, so as promised, I would like to go over the 5 principles, the 5 laws of success, and this will be kind of an extended assessment of these 5 principles, these 5 laws of success. And before I carry on, just so you know, this podcast is 100% unscripted. So that's to say that you might delight in the spontaneity of these words that are coming out of my mouth, because they're just coming down from above. I'm riding a feeling, I'm riding a wave. So ride it with me, would you? And if I stumble, if I fuck up, I'm sure you'll forgive me, and I'm sorry in advance. But anyway, here I go. Okay, number 1, this is important. I mean, they're all important, but number 1, this 5 deck here, number 1 is humility. Humble yourself. And this is something that I've certainly wrestled with over my career as an artist, as a creative, making a name for myself here in San Francisco, California, which is the Paris of the West, by the way. Pleasure to be here with you today. Old San Francisco, looking beautiful, little gray, but that's okay. Anyway, humility, humble yourself. Get over yourself. Somebody told me that, not too long ago even. In fact, I think it only just happened this morning. I think I finally got over myself this morning. Maybe I'm not even completely over myself. Maybe it's a never-ending battle. Perhaps narcissism is indeed the original sin, and every day you must get over yourself. Now, that's not to say put yourself down. That's not to say eliminate your ego. Because indeed, there's nothing wrong with having a giant ego. But you got to share it with everybody else. Well, at least those worthy of it being shared with. Now, that's to say that you cannot go around assuming that everybody else follows a different set of rules than you do. That everybody's subject to the same laws of physics. Everybody's subject to the same storms of emotion. Think about that. Everybody has felt sorrow. Everybody has felt grief. Everybody has felt blinding rage. I know I felt some of that. Nobody is immune from those things which plague you in the night, that keep you awake at night. Everybody is of the same cut. Everybody loves, and everybody ought love themselves. So, humble yourself to those around you. Remember that you must never tread on them to lift yourself up. You must only lift yourself up and show them the way. Say, look at me, I've lifted myself up. Perhaps you might like to lift yourself up too. Now, all of that is complete malarkey, you might argue, but I'm sitting here making the case, all right? So if you've got any qualms with that, feel free to let me know. But that's number one. Humble yourself. Get over yourself. Remember that you are just as human as everybody else. So empathize with your fellows, would you? Never forget it. Your fellows are worth your empathy. Are worthy of your empathy. That's what I meant to say. Anyway, moving the show right along. Humility, number one. Be humble. Very important. Number two, reverence. Be reverent to those things around you. There's a whole lot of wonderful things in the world, things that now I generalize, I say we, but I think the generalization can stand here. We generally take for granted. There are so many wonderful things in the world, both natural and man-made, that unfortunately get taken for granted by us. When we go around saying, oh, I hate this. Oh, the damn traffic today. Oh, snap, my phone just isn't fast enough. This or that. These are things, man. These are things that somebody laid out. Somebody did their very best. The amalgam of all the creative minds that have come before us, the billions and billions and billions of people who have lived their life, were born and died here on this very same ground that we're standing on. The amalgam of all of their good works is the modern world, are the things that we have in our hands, the things that we take for granted. This alarm clock that woke you up in the morning, or maybe you hit the snooze, man. I know I did. Anyway, no. This microphone that I'm talking into, I cannot even begin to break down how many people had a hand in bringing this microphone into my studio for the low price of like $30 too. $30. So I, in the modern world, can afford this microphone. I can't even imagine what people 50 years, what kind of microphones they had 50 years ago. It probably sucked. It was a goddamn VCR 20 years ago. I'm not stoned, by the way. It's just early in the morning, and I'm trying to get through this podcast in one piece. My point is, be reverent, yo. Be reverent to the accomplishments of those who have come before us. That's all I'm trying to say. Don't resent those artists around you who are experiencing wonderful successes because they have been humble and reverent. Just be reverent yourself. Humble yourself and be reverent to those things around you. Never take anything for granted. Break everything down to its core elements and think about where it came from and how many minds and how many hands had a part in bringing that thing into the world. Those skyscrapers downtown, the electrical wires that are supplying you the energy to listen to this silly podcast. Not silly, sorry. I shouldn't denigrate myself. Don't do that to yourself. I am making a conscious effort to stop doing that. Anyway, be humble. Be reverent. Here comes number 3. Get ready for it. It's a doozy, baby. Inspiration. Be inspired. I know you're rolling your eyes. I know these. I know you know them. I'm just telling you. I'm just laying them out so that we can all ponder them together. Pardon me. Inspiration. Be inspired. Now, I've got to touch on this point because it became quite apparent to me that beginning around 2018, up until very recently, I was not listening for inspiration. That's the funny thing about inspiration is you have to listen for it. You have to allow yourself to be completely alone with the universe for her to whisper little secrets right in your ear. Now, the more you shut out the universe, the more you do not allow yourself to be alone with the universe, the more time you spend scrolling on that phone, on that thing, on that pile of cogs and sprockets that lives in your pocket. The more time that you do that, the less inspired you'll be. Now, I know an argument could be made that that phone provides you with miles and miles of artists' work from which to draw inspiration. Now, that is a fine argument, but is it possible that more often than not, it's distracting you from what it is that you ought to be doing, or really what you want to be doing? Now, you don't have to answer that. I merely want to point that out to you, that perhaps your time is being eaten up by that phone. Perhaps you're falling prey to the robots. Now, the robots are innocent. The robots are just doing what they were programmed to do. But they're pretty goddamn good at it. And they're keeping you pretty well engaged these days. So, that's my main advice to you. Smash that phone with a hammer and listen to the inspiration. Sit under a tree all alone and listen. In perfect silence. Just listen to what she's saying. Because the universe has all kinds of little secrets for us creatives, okay? But you gotta be there for her when she's talking. Don't miss out. Turn your phone off. Relax. Just wait for it. It'll come. And when it comes, you won't be able to stop it. It'll be this little spark within you that starts to burn, and it gets brighter and brighter until eventually you can't keep it in anymore. And then, bang, it'll come out. It will manifest itself into the world so long as you have allowed yourself to be inspired. Okay, so that's 3 now, right? That's humility, reverence, inspiration. Number 4, deep purpose. That's about your intention. Ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Now, are you doing it for fame and glory? Are you doing it for wealth? Are you doing it to pick up chicks? Are you doing it to assert your dominance over others? These are all good questions to ask yourself. God knows, not that I believe in God or anything, but God knows I've wrestled with the purpose question. This is a big question. Now, there are those artists among us that say, I don't know what my intention is. I just do whatever I want. I've got no intention. Does that stand with you? It could, I suppose. I think that's how old Picasso saw the world. I just do what I want. I got no intention. I got no purpose. But I say it's important for you. I do believe it's important for you as an artist to have an intention with any given project, whatever it might be. How did I trim my fingernails? Because I had a purpose? Because I wanted to have trim fingernails? Or did I trim my fingernails because I don't know why? No, I think we all know why I trimmed my fingernails. Now, this is a silly example. But just give it a little thought. Before you tackle your next big project, think, what is my intention in tackling this project? And perhaps you'll come across something quite noble. You never know. But I got faith in you. I do believe that you are a good person. So be good. Don't be evil. These are two very opposite ways of being. So obviously, I think we all want to be good. Maybe you want to be evil. I don't know. But if you want to be evil, that's something, man. Now that would be an interesting purpose in creating art, is to bring evil into the world. I think you know that you don't want to bring evil into the world, but just laying that out there. Okay, and number 5. Yeah, I hope that made any sense. All right, so we're up to humility, reverence, inspiration, deep purpose. What's number 5? Now this is the clincher too. joy. That's to say happiness, effervescence, ecstasy. Wow. Now that's a feeling, man. Beyond a feeling, it's a goal. It is a goal. What is going to be your most... What is going to be the apex of your flourishing in your life? Now, are you going to let your life just, crumble into dust? Because you could. That's one way to do it. Do you want to achieve something great here on planet Earth? You've got precious little time here on planet Earth. So I would imagine that if you're listening to this podcast, it's because you want to achieve something great. You don't want fame for the sake of fame. You don't want wealth for the sake of wealth. You want to leave a mark on the world. Not a stain, but a mark, a beautiful monument. The realization of your ideal. The manifestation of beauty in your heart. Leave that on the world. And that, I promise you, that is the only thing that will bring you that supreme sense of happiness. That real sense of happiness. Now, happiness is not just little bits of... It's not a chocolate chip cookie at night. Might make you feel happy for 10 seconds. I'm talking about the big goddamn cookie. The big cookie at the end of your journey when you're laying down on your deathbed to have that feeling of... Oh, I got it all done. I did it all. And every day, let it be a metaphor that your life is the course of one day. Every day you wake up, give thanks to the fact that you are alive on this earth and you have this one great shot, this one great opportunity to bring something fucking fantastic, something beautiful, something amazing into the world. And you have the power to do it, and that is the thing that will bring you joy. And joy is it. The minute you found happiness, the minute you do it, you will find happiness through productivity, through productive achievement. It's not going to be easy. If it was easy, people who lay on their fucking back watching TV all day would feel happy. They don't feel happy. All right, but someone who works hard day in and day out to bring into the world something that only they could have brought into the world, that is the face of true happiness. And if that can be you, those among you will see, those around you, I should say, not those among you, those around you will see that bounce in your step. They will see that silly smile, that little spark in your eyes, and they will know that they are in the presence of divinity. Because we who create are that thing. That creative force. We who create are that entity that some people call Zeus, and some people call Odin, and some people call Shiva, and some people call the universal genius, and some people call him, you know what I'm talking about. We are the gods. Never forget it. Never forget it. Okay. So please, let that be a little source of encouragement to you, the creative. Never stop, all right? And always live by those principles if you can. Be humble. Be reverent. Be inspired. Have a deep purpose, for God's sakes. And number 5, be happy about it. Okay. Hey, everybody, I'm Clyde always. And let's lighten the mood with a tiny bit of poetry. Poetry for you. And this is an original poem called Gramma Sue. When my grandmother Sue was 102, she had moved to the country of Flink, which was infamous for its magnificent shore that would shimmer in purple and pink. And every September she'd always remember to write me in octopus ink. After dipping her pen, she would lick it, and then fancy paper she'd pummel and punch. All then brimming with hope, one manila envelope would be plucked from his brothers the bunch, and she'd stuff in the letter and do me 2 better. $10 and some cracker tea crunch. Once she'd rummaged a stamp, to the yard would she tramp. There she'd sit, with a gnome name of Trevor, And Vivaldi they'd hum till the mailman would come. He'd arrive about quarter to never, and I'd find it upsetting. My Gram kept forgetting. In Flink, it was Sunday forever. Bonk, bonk. Hey, everybody, thanks for that. If you liked that, be sure to pick up a copy of my new book, Samantha Muffin Baker and the Funny Land of Flink, available on my website, ClydeOways.com. Okay, hey, everybody, it's time to go to a new segment here on this new podcast, and this segment is called Artist Highlight, in which I put the spotlight on one lucky artist week after week. No week will be omitted, all right? One artist shall be highlighted every week here at Need a Lift, all right? And let this artist be an inspiration to you. Today's artist is poet Stephen Kopel, who happens to be my late great mentor. Now, Stephen Kopel was a regular fixture in the Castro neighborhood for years and years. I think from the late 70s all the way up till 2020. He was a dear friend of mine. Beyond a dear friend of mine, he was my teacher. He was someone who fostered my talents when I first started to parade around the poetry scene like I owned the damn thing. Now, as much as he wanted to, increase my confidence, he also really helped to humble me and to allow me to find my empathy for others. So for that, I'll be eternally grateful. Okay, now Stephen Kopel was born in 1940. All right, and he was a singer and a dancer in his youth. Spent some time teaching youngsters, and then he was a real estate agent. But then he hit upon his most productive career across his whole lifetime when he became a poet in 1995, writing his first poem after his niece's graduation. All right, and he went on to be published in no fewer than at least 100 literary journals, and he put out 4 poetry chapbooks, as they're called. So that's to say, a book filled with nothing but poetry by this wonderful man. And he was a punsteer. He was word playful. In fact, it is my assertion that in the future, when students of literature come across work that is quite heavy in wordplay, they will say, "My, it's very Kopelian." An example. Allow me to read you one of Stephen Kopel's poems. This is from More Picnic Poetry. Be wary of Mary. Afloat, feet flutter on a celery stalk in this his lost count, Bloody Mary. Leukemia senses a carbuncle's incipient eruption, not unlike his textbook's appendix bursting with references later found unreliable. Again, he signals to his imaginary lifeguard wearing her avocado scrub to haul his sorry ass over the rim. Out of the rhyme he declines to declaim, gingerly stepping into a pair of trunks. Alfred Hitchcock props, his better half in Louis Vuitton, bitter half in a battered steamer. Both halves waiting for biopsy results that could sink all of him for good. Now, Stephen Kopel, I know, that was a doozy, wasn't it? Now, Stephen Kopel, he was a kind of a sprite, and he would brighten people's days. And this is what I seek from my life, is to have what I'm referring to as Stephen moments. Now, that's to say you go out into the world, and you wait for someone to just offer you that opportunity to brighten their day. All right, and these were silly little things, Maybe he'd walk by a couple who are slinking hand in hand, lovebirds, down the street. And he'd walk up and he'd say, just out of the blue, this little old man would say, best looking couple I've seen all day. And of course, because he did it so sincerely, which they both crack a smile, say something along, oh, thank you, blah, blah, blah. Another thing he would do, if he saw a single lady, he'd come up and say, are you free for a tango about 7 o'clock tonight? Things like this. Now, he was the picture of a perfect gentleman, always, if a bit foolish, a Shakespearean fool, as it were. But it were these little outbursts that really would brighten people's day. If he saw a strapping man, a man with huge hulking shoulders, he would come up and ask him for a piggyback ride. How much do you want for a piggyback ride? These are funny things. A comedian, a true comedian, a performance artist, as it were. And he was my dear friend. And he was someone who encouraged me to submit my poetry to journals, someone who encouraged me to recite my poetry out and about in the world with a smile on my face to bring joy to other people. He wanted that to be my purpose, and that I will never, ever forget. So that concludes today's Artist Spotlight, Stephen Kopel. All right? And you can get his book, More Picnic Poetry, illustrated by me, yours truly, Clyde, always. But you can get his book, More Picnic Poetry, on Amazon. Or just hit me up. I'm sure I can get you a copy. I've got a few extras. Okay. Oh, on that note, by the way, if you enjoyed today's Artist Spotlight, feel free to submit your work if you would like to be the Artist Spotlit in a future episode, okay? Because I would be happy to spotlight you. All you need to do is go to my website, ClydeAlways.com. There you will find my email address. All right, and just send me an email with whatever it is. I don't know if you're a cross stitcher. Send me some pictures of your cross stitching. Tell me about it. If you're a rock and roller, send me a vid of your latest performance. Tell me about how you became a rock and roller. I would love to spotlight you. I would love for other artists to be inspired by your good works. So please hit me up. Let me in. I want to know all about it. Okay. We'll always end this podcast on something light, an anecdote, something silly, a tale, a true tale about artists living here in the city, about wild things that have happened, about hitchhiking across the country. I've got a million little anecdotes to share with you. And today's is about a time I first moved to the city and county of San Francisco. And I was a bit lost because I didn't really know my way around. And this was before I had the good sense to quit drinking. I got to tell you that, too. If you spend a good portion of your day drinking or regretting getting so drunk the night before, then I would imagine you've got a drinking problem. And there's nothing wrong with that. Happens to the best of us. Happened to me. But if that be the case, maybe it would be better if you quit drinking. Just like me, I've got to smash my phone because I'm addicted to it. I hate that stupid phone. Yet somehow I still get roped in day after day. So anyway, proverbially, smash the bottle of booze, stop drinking it, move on with your life. You can do better. Anyway, before I had realized that, before I had come to that conclusion, I was, for lack of a better word, plastered, stumbling around San Francisco late at night too. Might have been 2 in the morning, maybe 3. And unfortunately, I'd spent all my money at the bar, so I didn't have money for a taxi ride home, and I didn't know where I was. So, having just returned from a vagabond adventure across America, I said, well, you know what? Let me just give it a shot. I've never hitchhiked in the middle of a big city before. Let me see what happens. So I turned around, and I stuck out my thumb, and the first pair of headlights pulled over. I couldn't believe it. The window opened just a crack, and I see these 2 eyes looking at me. And the guy says, hey, man, you need a ride? And I said, yeah. And he said, where are you going? I said, Hayes and Fillmore. He said, oh, okay. Well, get in. So I opened the door, and lo and behold, this driver was buck naked. I mean it. All the way naked. Well, he was wearing a little piece of silicone around the base of his genitals. But other than that, this man had on no clothes. Well, silly me, I mean, what I should have done was walk away, but I didn't. I got in the car. And he drove me to my pad, and I thanked him very much. And that is the end of the story. A true story. I know, it was wild. All right, everybody. That concludes the first episode of Needle Lift Podcast. I'm sure they'll only get better from here. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time.